इनके घर नहीं भेजना है, इनके घर में एक ऑटिस्टिक बच्चा हमारे बच्चे को भी हो जाएगा. I have seen parents strapping their kids on chairs, putting them in locked rooms, avoid a social gathering. I have seen affluent families, educated families, hiding their child with a guardian in some flat given to the guardian and the child कि इसको देखना, हमारी reputation ना खराब हो जाए. The first thing we definitely get is resistance and anger. How could you ever think my child has a problem? When I go to a mall with Ranveer, he's touching people. So I would be told very, very crudely, संभालना नहीं आता तो लाते क्यों है mall में? We are left isolated and we have to fend for ourselves to, find friends for Ranveer.
In autism, the social and the language milestones are deviated.
He would have repetitive behaviours. He would keep plugging his ears. He would walk tiptoe. He would pretend like he's deaf. जितना रोना है, Bucks, you can cry today and cry your heart out. But from tomorrow, it's only going to be working on our child. Stop staring at families with neurodivergent kids. They're not some extinct species or some different kind of species because we always get those stares, you know.
As per data, at least 80% of the kids can get independent.
See, there are movies like Tare Zameen Par, there are movies like Sitare Zameen Par. Autism, like what they showed of Priyanka as a role and what they show of Shah Rukh Khan saying, "My name is Khan." People who have low functioning kids back home, they know that the representation on screen is nowhere close to what their child is going through,
Autism might even be caused by, screen dominance, screen dependency. Is that true? And is there any connection at all between too much screen time and something like autism? Every child develops differently. Some speak earlier, some later. Some love eye contact and some avoid it. Some communicate through words, others through actions. But sometimes those differences aren't simply personality. They're signs that a child's brain processes the world differently. For years, India worked off a 2011 census number that disability prevalence was only 1.3%. A lot of experts suspected that it was wrong, but it was only in March of this year, 2026, when new rigorous data revealed that nearly 1 in 100 Indian children under the age of 10 has autism, and almost 1 in 8 has at least one neurodevelopmental condition. That is 10 times higher than what the census told us. This year also gave India a mainstream cultural moment that it hadn't had before. Aamir Khan's Sitare Zameen Par, a spiritual successor to Tare Zameen Par, which gave us the country's most remembered portrayal of a learning difference. And it cast real neurodivergent actors. So now we have better data, more conversation, even a Bollywood movie. So today we're asking what all of this actually adds up to for a parent sitting at home wondering if what they're noticing in their child is something worth naming. So let's begin. Hello and welcome to All About Her, and today we're talking about autism, neurodiversity and early intervention. You may already know that we had a conversation on neurodivergence, but that one was more specifically on children with Down syndrome. Today's conversation will highlight autism. So our first guest is someone who spent years helping children communicate, learn, and thrive. She's a pediatric neurologist, a behaviour analyst, ABA therapist, and special educator, bringing together medicine, neuroscience, and child development in a way that I think very few professionals do. She co-founded Butterfly Learnings with the belief that early intervention can genuinely change lives. So please welcome Dr. Sonam Kothari. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us.
We also have with us Mrs. Bakhtawar Saini, Deputy Chairperson of Scottish High International School, Gurugram. Over more than 30 years across education, corporate leadership, and inclusion, she has led the school's integrated learning program for over 2 decades now. She served as senior advisor to Special Olympics Bharat and as a national trainer with the Rehabilitation Council of India. She is also a mother. Her son, Ranveer Singh Saini, is a national awardee and a world champion golfer who is autistic. I want to thank you both for joining us today. We've had one conversation on neurodivergence and raising children, with neurodiversity, but that, as I said in my introduction, focused more on children with Down syndrome. And we had someone called Nora, her mother was there, Pooja, and we actually went to a preschool together, my daughter and her daughter, and we had a lovely conversation just about all the things, all the challenges, all the things that she celebrates about being a mother, but how also the burden often, is more on the mother, and I will come to you, Mr. Bakhtawar, about that. But my memories, because I haven't seen Nora for a while, were of her and Inaya playing together, and Nora just being full of curiosity and wonder. And there were signs of, there were things that she found more physically challenging, which is what I noticed, because at that point, they were not doing a lot of things that were mentally so obvious. But you could see that there were hurdles. But even then, the school, which was a small preschool, really came together to include. And then my experience with Pooja was that as Nora became bigger and went to big school, it was difficult. And it is still difficult in terms of infrastructure in Mumbai, certainly, to find schools that have stretched themselves to genuinely include. And that's something that is an ongoing struggle. But of course, we understood also in the podcast, neurodivergence is huge. Right. In fact, in the 50, 60, 70 podcasts that we've done, like the human nature is like a spectrum. And everybody, whether it's gender, whether it's, right. it's everybody is on a spectrum somewhere. And, most of us are in the middle somewhere, but, it's really fascinating to just learn about difference. And one thing that I've really come to appreciate is everybody is different, and just to be accepting of that.
Of course.
That's the idea of spreading awareness of difference through this podcast. But touching on this subject, I feel is new for me, so I will learn through the both of you. And one thing was a statistic that I highlighted in the introduction about the 2011 census, which I think underplayed perhaps
of course
the numbers. And there's something called the Inclin study, and I thought I would ask you, Dr. Kothari, which actually said that autism is up to 10 times more prevalent in India. So were you surprised by this number when it came out earlier this year?
So not really surprised, because it actually matches the global numbers, although we didn't have those numbers till recently. But globally, they have already mentioned that 1 in 8 require some kind of interventions, or they are having some kind of developmental problems. And 1 in 60, or recently it has been told 1 in 40 in males, or male child or boy child, the prevalence of autism. Although in the Inclin study, it's like 1 in 90, what they have put. Right. But interestingly, 15% of the population where they studied, like 5 different places, didn't participate in the study. So maybe it's underreported still. So it may be way more. Just to give an example for that, like pediatricians, they usually 6 years back, they hardly used to see neurodivergence in their general OPD, once in a month or so. Now, a pediatrician, they give vaccinations. So every time the child goes to them for routine vaccinations, an IAP protocol, almost every pediatrician sees 2 to 4 in a week. So that's the raise, or that's the increase in the prevalence in the last 5 to 8 years.
Mrs. Bakhtawar, I wanted to ask you actually, because you've worked for now, I think, over 30 years in this space of inclusion. Right. Do you think that the numbers are increasing, or is it just that we have become better at recognizing it, that we've become better at diagnosing it?
I think we have become better at diagnosing it, but the rural areas are still the affected areas where parents, don't even know they are raising a child with special needs, and they get to know much bloomer stage when the child is, into full bloom autism. But the ratio definitely is underestimated, what has been quoted in this census, and I would say 1 in 31. That's what the US status says is an autistic child, whereas India, the ratio is 1 into 600. Right. So definitely there is a mismatch somewhere.
Right.
And we definitely need to work more upon assessing these kids, and government is coming up with a lot of initiatives now.
We will touch on those a little later as the conversation progresses, but I think maybe for some of us watching at home who may not even know, Doctor, could you tell us what actually neurodiversity is? And a lot of us, I feel, there are blanket terms used. People understand now that there's difference. But we use sort of big terms like this child is special. Sometimes we say this child is slow. And it doesn't really do justice to the range.
Yes. So usually a child develops in a particular way. Like they have motor development, social development, language development as per age. So 1 year child should do these things. 2 years should do these things. If the child is not following the routine trend of development, whatever has been the global standards, there's a divergence in any of the milestones, it's a neurodivergence. The label can be anything. They can be autism, it can be ADHD, language and communication disorder, intellectual disabilities, slow learners, learning disabilities. So all these are spectrum. The only thing is, like for example, in autism, the social and the language milestones are deviated.
Right.
In ADHD, because of the hyperactivity or lack of concentration, it affects all the milestones except for motor. Similarly, a learning disability might have difficulty in academics because the social, language, motor is absolutely okay. But they are having trouble in understanding or the logical thinking of the academic part. So it's basically just divergence in the routine or the usual development what the child should have.
And is it possible that two of these conditions can co-occur?
Absolutely.
Like ADHD and autism, and that happens?
And there has been studies stating that a child with autism has a higher prevalence of epilepsy, or 30% of the kids with autism also have ADHD associated with it.
Right.
So these type of comorbidities are there, and they can come in mixtures. Like 60% of the kids with autism are having intellectual disability. So they do coexist.
I wanted to ask you, I think especially coming to you as a mother also now, I feel like when you hear the word autism, people have a kind of preconception perhaps of what they're experiencing or what they're dealing with. And I feel also again like a lot of our conceptions of things come from the media. Images that we see or movies that we watch. For the audience, I'm saying as someone who belongs to films, I have experiences that I have had personally, of course, as I said, with neurodivergent children such as Nora, but few and far between, I feel. But I've seen a lot of movies, and for a lot of people, when they think of autism, they think of Hrithik Roshan, or they think of his character Rohit from Koi Mil Gaya. I feel perhaps, I'll tell you what I feel later. I want to ask you what you feel. Another sort of character is Priyanka Chopra's character from Barfi. These are characters. Earlier, perhaps there were also characters in films, but it was not presented as this character is autistic.
Right.
These characters you understood were autistic characters. So in one way, I feel like there's representation on screen in a way that perhaps didn't happen earlier. But I wanted to ask you, is that representation accurate? What did you think of that? And I want to come to what I think later because I don't want to color you. I mean, you have...
See, there are movies like Tare Zameen Par, there are movies like Sitare Zameen Par.
Yes.
And what I would feel is autism, like Sonam explained, is a spectrum and it's a huge umbrella. So what they showed of Priyanka as a role and what they show of Shah Rukh Khan saying, "My name is Khan."
Actually, you're right, because in My Name is Khan also he had Asperger's, and now Asperger's has come under the umbrella of autism, which I think is new.
Autism.
But that didn't happen earlier. It was like two separate things.
So the DSM criteria has been changing. So recently, Asperger's name went off, and now it's like high-functioning autism.
Right.
So that's
so then Shah Rukh Khan's character is also autistic.
Also autistic, of course. And so, Soha, what happens is, people who have low-functioning kids back home, they know that the representation on screen is nowhere close to what their child is going through, with major behavior issues. There are kids who are completely non-verbal. There are kids who are drooling. There are kids who are having repetitive behavior issues, which obviously are not shown on the screen for reasons to make it an exciting cinema. But so they have their high motivational reasons also for common masses, but they have families who get demoralized. No, this is not the right way of picturizing autism. Because for autism, when Ranveer was diagnosed way back in 2002, I had no clue what autism was all about, and autism awareness, which is happening now, was nowhere anywhere close to what was happening in 2002. Nobody even associated autism in the dictionary of India,
Right.
So autism was considered to be a mental child.
Right.
It had to be something called a mental retardation. Everything was considered MR.
Right.
तो इस घर में कोई पागल बच्चा है, वो इस घर में diagnosis हुआ है पागल बच्चे की. So this is the kind of pressure we as a family in any case were given that label for life, and then that thing of pagal bacha, and then now autism suddenly being coming up on stages, which is good for the common masses to get aware that there is some ailment called autism, and it's a condition. It's not a communicable disease, which is, because in my times I was told इनके घर नहीं भेजना है, इनके घर में एक autistic बच्चा हमारे बच्चे को भी हो जाएगा.
Sure.
So people at that
Like, there
time
was no
thought
awareness,
it was
there was
just
no education at
it was
all.
just a communicable disease at that moment
Right,
of time.
right.
So these movies definitely help for masses to understand that autism is just a condition, a neurological condition, which can be helped and worked upon if intervention is given.
Do you feel, Dr. Kothari, that these representations are helpful, or can they be harmful also?
I think they are helpful because at least some awareness is getting created. Like after Tare Zameen Par, I think there was a surge of getting the kids diagnosed if they are having a problem, because there are, like I would say, in a class of 25, at least there are 3 kids who are not at the level of the academics what the others are doing. And those 3 are just scolded, they are just made to study. कैसे नहीं आ रहा है, क्यों नहीं कर रहा है? So after that movie, we in a government setup, we actually started getting a lot of kids for evaluation, that evaluate if there is a problem or not.
Right.
So I think movies are definitely creating a lot of awareness, and it's like global, everyone sees it, even a non-educated person or a less educated sees it. So awareness is getting created. But as ma'am mentioned, that it's the better ones what have been depicted, but there are a lot of kids who are not even in that level. I mean, they are very severe. So yes, there is a spectrum, but at least some awareness is getting created.
What I really liked about Sitare Zameen Par was the actual inclusion of a cast that was neurodivergent. Instead of having an actor who's neurotypical playing, and then playing to certain limitations perhaps. Whereas it's obviously different if you are actually neurodivergent or you have Down syndrome, as one of the lead characters did have. And then, as you said, it may still be on a higher end of the spectrum, and it may only show a certain amount of characteristics, but at least it's real, at least it's accurate.
Right.
And also the narrative was interesting, the narrative was interesting because it was also told from the perspective of neurodivergent characters.
I just had an opportunity to speak to one of the characters' mother.
Really?
She was so happy with the cast or the crew and the crew, everyone is not educated or of that class. Everyone is working. Someone is a cameraman, someone is getting water, but everyone was so considerate to these kids. They understood that suppose the kid is not feeling good because of the volume, they made sure that they get the headphones so that they are feeling better.
Right.
So the crew could include them as an inclusion. They were so good to all the kids. I think जब वो 30 लोग कर सकते हैं तो सभी लोग कर सकते हैं. It's like that.
In fact, they all visited my school also.
Really,
the
did they?
entire crew came in.
At what point was that in the?
Just 72 hours ago, we met Naman, and a few of them came to our school also. And it was such a beautiful feeling of acceptance from the mainstream when they were looked upon as heroes and celebrities.
Yes.
And I think that was a very fulfilling, gesture for these kids as actors, and the mainstream asking them to give autographs. The feeling of acceptance in their eyes was a great, overwhelming feeling as a mother, which I could see. And they were befriending Ranveer and Naman together on the stage as superheroes and superstars.
How lovely. You said something a little while ago about the rural and urban divide. And I think also because you've done so much work with committees like Special Olympics Bharat, in your experience, do you feel really that there is a stark difference in diagnosis and, just the numbers, rural and urban?
Absolutely a stark difference. Rural environment is not even aware there's something called autism. They don't have the family supporting them. Everybody is in a denial mode. They're not even, it's a taboo. It's a taboo to even consider to have an autism, or they hush it up, that chup rehna, ghar mein hi rehna hai, kahin bahar nahi nikalna hai. Or the mothers are being, dumped upon as you are the major person or you are responsible for him to be like this. So the rural environment, I have worked upon with many ladies in villages who have called me when they've seen Ranveer on social media platforms and reached out to me, कि आपने क्या किया मैडम जी, आप मुझे बताइए. It's not a phone call explanation of explaining them what therapies is all about, but they are so concerned. They said, हम नागपुर के ये village से बात कर रहे हैं, हमारे घर में कोई support नहीं कर रहा है. So that made me my faith was more confirmed that, these kids are definitely not being diagnosed, not being assessed, and the family, especially the mother and the environment is, so definitely a stark difference.
I mean, I know now, like you also referred to the government being involved now, I believe that, and you might know this because you also work with professionals who are trained, across the country. Screening processes, I believe now that there is some kind of standardized autism screening that takes place. But I'm also aware that we have a number of languages in India.
Right.
And language can be an impediment to just comprehension and understanding. And I believe the screening is only in 5 languages.
Yes.
So, when this rolls out in a clinic, I just want to understand what if there's a child or, a parent who doesn't speak one of those 5 languages, then what happens?
So one of the problems is languages, definitely. So it's a questionnaire. Questionnaires usually is very subjective. So even a father and a mother will have a different perspective for the child.
Absolutely.
And it's so true. A grandparent and a teacher will have a different perspective for the same child. The questions are same.
Right.
So it's a very subjective way of diagnosis. So it's like...
What are some of the questions that...
So like, is your child giving an eye contact? Or is your child making friends? Or child is communicating with you. So now the parent will say, हाँ हमसे तो बात करता है, बाहर नहीं करता है. But these are very, so he will take that yes. But actually when a other person sees, they'll be like, no, he doesn't communicate at all. Or a doctor sees, he'll be like, no, he doesn't communicate.
Right.
So there's a lot of subjectivity. Because of this subjective, language is definitely a problem because these questions have to be in their language to understand. They are very much
they're so subtle
detailed
and
questions.
layered.
Correct. And language is a problem. Subjectivity is a problem.
Yes.
So the picking rate, the sensitivity of the best screening tool, that is the subjective screening tool, is like 50%. So, out of 100, what you're screening, 50 are getting missed just because of these problems. Subjectivity, confusion, language. So, I think, yes, screening tool is there. And I think the earliest age what they can screen presently is like 18 months of age.
Oh, I see.
So, but this problem starts at way early. I mean, you can start seeing the problems or the symptoms even at 6 and 8 months of age.
But Soha, delayed milestones vis-a-vis an educated urban lady versus a rural villager.
Yes.
How would she identify that these are the milestones I have to work upon and look at?
Right.
So even I missed out a lot of milestones on Ranveer till 1 year, 11 months old. And people would say, ladka hai, to, dheere bolega, kam bolega, late bolega. So, you have to go with the flow until you get diagnosed. It's too late maybe for intervention.
Again, I will come to that, but just speaking about the screening, because I do understand the limitations and hopefully those will be addressed as this becomes more and more routine. But again, I feel like if autism and developmental delays are more common than what people actually think, there are other reasons perhaps for things going unregistered. I feel perhaps that there's also a lot of stigma still. Like you said, in 2002, there certainly was. I feel like even today in 2026, still we are bound in so many respects, not just with, developmental delays, but in so many ways. There's so much taboo around so many subjects. So I wanted to ask you, in your experience, reasons why people do not even look for diagnosis, do not leave, the house, do not use the tools that even if they are limited and certainly not perfect, the tools, they're still not using even those tools.
So as an educationist, what I've noticed is, the initial stage of the child developing in our school, and when we find those symptoms, when the child is exhibiting those red flags, we try and alert the parent, that the child needs to go through a proper assessment. And the first thing we definitely get is resistance and anger.
Right.
How could you ever think my child has a problem? That is the kind, you're looking at your child. There are parents who have actually told me, just because you have a special needs child, you want to look at every child with a jaundiced eye. So it is not the question. There is definitely hesitation, complete denial for young parents to even think that their child is being considered for an assessment. So I think this is where parents go a little wrong. When they are guided for an assessment, they should grab the opportunity and go ahead and get a proper assessment done, because I feel early intervention is the only way forward for any autistic child.
It does require courage.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
like many things, we want to not know. And we feel like if we don't know, then...
But how long?
Yeah, I know.
How long they will keep hiding it under the carpet? It has to come out. The real symptoms will start coming out when the child is 4 years, 5 years, and by then it's too late for intervening him into the right system.
Yes. But which is why I think your journey, your experience, your own personal connection with your son and his journey
Right.
are so important to share with the world.
Right.
To say that, so much is available to do, and you can improve someone's quality of life so much.
But 2002 say 2026, that still there is definitely a progression and awareness has increased, but the societal pressure is definitely there on families like ours. We do not have real friends for Ranveer. We do not have that kind of support where families will come and say, let's take Ranveer out for a drive, or friends say, let's take him out to the, he's 25, so let's take him out to a party or a disc or anywhere. We are left isolated and we have to fend for ourselves to, find friends for Ranveer.
Yes.
So that is a tough thing for families like ours.
It is incredibly tough. And I'm thinking again, because everyone's experience is so different for various reasons. There's children who find themselves isolated for various reasons. And that can be very challenging to do. And even to fight your child's battle for them is tough. You want them, you want to protect them, how much to let them develop themselves. And, especially when it is a condition that involves communication and involves socializing. And I will come to that. But for some people who are watching, the screening process, you said, it comes in obviously after the child is born. A lot of people might think that these things are flagged when the child is in the womb. So if you can explain, how when one is pregnant, you go through multiple scans, genetic testing, Down syndrome, etc., are flagged sometimes. So some people might have conceptions about what can happen when the baby is in the womb. So when it comes to autism, firstly, if you can just explain, I know you did, what is autism and can it be diagnosed when the child is in the womb?
Okay, so autism is basically the child is having difficulty in socialization. So social milestone are the problem in the child. So basically, I'm not interested in talking to you. I'm not interested in human faces. I don't want to interact with humans, but I'm very good with my toys. I want non-living things to be engaged with. So usually when a child starts growing, by 2 months, 3 months, they start giving a smile. They have a social smile. They start smiling, looking at mother or human faces. And after 6-8 months, because of the seeing, they start copying a lot of things. They start learning, expressing, mirroring. So these things are lacking in these kids. Because of this, language starts getting lacked. Why? Because language is also learned by seeing. They listen, they copy, and they start speaking. We don't teach communication language to a kid. Kids just start speaking, looking at people. Because these kids are not looking, not seeing, not interested, they don't learn language. So basically, the delay is in social and language milestones. And because they are stuck in the social, because they are not learning through imitation, they are stuck in sensory place. At 6 months, they put everything in mouth. The babies put everything in mouth. They play. They start feeling things. They start seeing lights and seeing listening to sounds. They get stuck in that play. So because I'm not learning through imitation, so these cause repetitive behaviors that usually are seen in kids, that they are moving around, round and round, because that gives a pleasure. It's a play for them. Or maybe just seeing somewhere, because that gives a pleasure to them. So basically, social language delay and having some kind of repetitive behaviors, this is a core symptomatology of autism. Now, what causes autism? The general principle is 60% is genetic, 40% is epigenetics. So genetics is something that is coming from the womb. It may not be from the mother, but it is some genetic changes that is happening during conception. It can be related to infection that the mother is having during pregnancy. It can be some food items which has created free radicals, which is causing genetic mutations. This is one. Second is epigenetics, which is one of the major reasons that is coming up. The food, what we eat.
So epigenetics generally means lifestyle.
Lifestyle changing the genetic makeup. So it's like what food we eat, what environment we are in, all these infectious environment in the womb, that causes immune problems in the mother, which passes through the womb to the child, which causes the brain problems, and that is causing autism. So I won't say that, this child is having genetic issue or this child is epigenetic just because we are lacking in the precision diagnosis of this disease. Like, for example, if a child comes with a fever pattern, the doctor says, okay, this fever pattern looks like a typhoid fever. They get a blood test done. Blood test comes positive. You give a medicine for 5 days and the child's fever is gone. This type of precision medicine is the need of the hour for autism and developmental problems, which I think will solve majority of the issues because presently it's not there.
So many questions for you, but the answer about while the child is in the womb.
Yeah.
So if you could tell us, so it's not possible to be diagnosed when the child is in utero.
Around 10% kids also have diagnosable genetic problems with autism. Those 10% can be diagnosed with just genetic testing. Around 90% of the kids, they don't present with a particular genetic problem.
Right.
So you can do the genetic testing. There might be 100 genes that might be, associated with autism.
जी.
But हर बच्चे को तुम बोल तो नहीं सकते हो कि इसको होने ही वाला है.
Right.
So that's why you cannot diagnose in the womb. Yes, definitely, but you should check if the elder sibling or a sibling is affected already. His genetic testing needs to be done. Then that genetic mutation can be tested in the child so that you have a definite answer that this genetic mutation caused this. So at least that mutation present, you should not go ahead with that.
So many questions for you, Mrs. Bakhtawar.
So I'm just adding a quick one to this. I have a third child after Ranveer.
I see.
And I did go through every trimester. I had a test from my amniotic fluid was removed and tested because to see if there is a genetic disorder following there. No conclusions. So you always live with that fear, but Down syndrome definitely can be tested.
Yes. But even then, there's a chance.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you again about your experience. When you found out what was, as you said, it was very new then. It was not a very welcoming situation to be in, having a child who was not neurotypical. So when did you know?
Like Sonam explained, I did find a lot of red flags exhibited by Ranveer when he was 18 months old. You know, he would have repetitive behaviors. He would keep plugging his ears. He would keep running around in circles. He would walk tiptoe. He would pretend like he's deaf. He would not give me eye contact. So I was in a naval community, being a naval officer's wife, and I would be told when I would come back from work कि थोड़ा बच्चे पे ध्यान दिया कर, you're working and you're coming home late. वो थोड़ा बात ही नहीं करता है, friends ही नहीं है उसके पास. And मुझे लग रहा है थोड़ा deaf भी है. One of the naval wives had told me this. And then I went on that alert mode, and watched him carefully. But I found no symptoms of him being deaf.
Right.
But I took him to his pediatrician, and he told me that, yes, why don't you get an assessment done? And he labeled something called autism ? And we went to Pedder Road and got him tested. And he was just given a set of toys, Soha, and asked to play. And once the assessor found him not playing appropriately, the pretend and play was not done the right way.
What does that mean, appropriate?
So you are given some, to stainless steel के dining sets आते थे जब हम छोटे थे, तो उसको दे दिया, teacup दिया. He did not look at. He was playing with his toy car and making it go round and round. So again, not appropriately playing. So I was given a diagnosis called PDD autism and pervasive development disorder autism ? Now you're a working couple, never heard of this, and we went back home, searched through Google, and we realized, oops, it's a neurological disorder. And in the midst of shift transferred from Bombay to Delhi, we were in that midst when Ranveer got diagnosed. He was just 1 year, 11 months old. And to come to a new city with a kid who has been given a label and to start from the beginning was challenging. And then I realized there was nothing called a center which had everything together. So families like us had to run to one center for sensory integration, one center for speech therapy, the other for language therapy, another hospital for occupational therapy. Imagine working parents struggling in a new city and suddenly being given this label.
Right.
So it was a very difficult phase, and the society saying, kuch to garbar hai, and people start suddenly becoming aloof and not trying to, in fact, help us and try to stay aloof. And it was only the families which supported. And I remember my husband this was 2002, December end, he got diagnosed, and it was 31st December. He told me, Jitna rona hai, Bucks, you can cry today and cry your heart out. But from tomorrow, it's only going to be working on our child.
Yeah.
So I had a very supportive partner. My family is super supportive, and we siblings and my husband, we work as a team. It's never the mother who is left alone to work for the child. And I think that was a blessing for Ranveer and blessing for me, that I had a super supportive family support. And my husband and I then realized that the only way forward is we have to give up our respective careers. We cannot have a Navy transfer us from one city to the other and dismantling Ranveer from his therapies. So we decided, let's just, my husband was a short admiral material, an ex-NDA, worked very hard for his career, and he knew he wanted to be, in the limelight in the Navy. And he suddenly had to give up his stripes when he was just a commander. And me doing very well as director of sales with the Taj Group of Hotels, 12 long years, happy moving around in my saris in Bombay. And to be told that, it's time you give up your career and let's focus on our child. So I think leaving your dreams behind and working on the child, and an older daughter who's just 4 years older than Ranveer, to settle her in a school and then go school hunting for Ranveer in a new place and not getting admission anywhere. So the family is left to frustrations and, desperate measures as to how does one educate this boy who is full of behavior issues and who is, spitting, drooling, having issues. Nobody wants us around in a social party, and he would suddenly disappear in a social party. He would, suddenly slip out of my hand and run around somewhere. So I started labeling, I'm an autistic boy. Start inventing methods of protecting your child. And I would go up on a New Year's party in a place where suddenly my child is lost and go on the stage and disrupt the party and say, I'm an autistic mom. My 4-year-old boy seems to be lost in this crowd. Help me. And people booing at you and, jeering at you. When I go to a mall with Ranveer, he's full of behavior issues, plugging, touching ladies, touching people. So I would be told very, very crudely, and I rightfully so, कि संभालना नहीं आता तो लाती क्यों है मॉल में? Now these words are very harsh.
Of course.
Are very harsh, but they still exist.
Yeah.
Trust me, they still exist. So to change the mindset of people, and I would go pleading as if my son has done a big thing of being labeled with autism, that sorry sir, thoda neurological problem. And nobody would understand autism. So thoda behavior problem, a communication problem. I remember in McDonald's, he just went and picked up somebody's burger. He would just run away like that. So it's very difficult for families to go and explain and what autism is, what the behavior issues are. So a tough journey, but take it on. That's the only way. So I think took it on, and I realized that, why should I be, the society has to learn to accept my child. And my child has all the right to live in the society with his disorder and yet keep moving ahead.
Yes. There's so many stages though.
Yes.
To acceptance. And I remember again, because I'm going back to my conversation with Pooja also, where she said when she found out the diagnosis of Down syndrome, she grieved. But her husband also was similar. I think maybe men are very solution-oriented, perhaps, and say, okay, what is the solution? And he immediately looked up people with Down syndrome who have excelled and brought a list to her and said that, this is the potential. This is where one can go. So let's look in this direction.
Of course.
Again, when I think of autism, when I was doing the research, I didn't know Anthony Hopkins is autistic. Greta Thunberg is autistic. There's so many people that we have so much respect for who have reached, the pinnacle of their chosen careers with autism. I wanted to ask you also, because was there a moment, my understanding is when there's no clear diagnosis, there's so much that is still left for medicine to, come to precision diagnosis, etc. At that point, when you don't know what has happened and why this has happened, I'm assuming you did not know what and why this happened. I've
floated my own theories. I was in my 4th month with Ranveer, and I had herpes zoster. So that, had covered me with shingles all on my face. And could that be the possibility? Or could there be a possibility I had a vacuum delivery for Ranveer, where my doctor could not reach on time to deliver, when I was in my labor pain. Or Ranveer was given a vitamin K shot just after his birth. So many floating theories. I've never been able to pinpoint a cause of autism. Neither there is a cure for autism. So you are, in the middle path, and the only way is work on your child.
Was there, I feel like a lot of things, when things happen like this, we blame ourselves. In your different stages, was that also something that you had to grapple with?
No, I did definitely look back as to what could have gone wrong, but never did the stage come when we as a couple blamed each other.
Yeah.
We were very clear that, this Ranveer is God's blessing in my life, and we were very strong in accepting him the way we were very strong to accept him the way he was. So there was never a blame game happening or never a guilt trip which we both went on as a couple. It was, yes, definitely, aage kya.
Yeah.
Or we had to curb our dreams when, we had a son. We had a daughter ahead of Ranveer, and we have Ranveer. So we were a perfect family. We thought this would be the perfect thing for us. And Ranveer is definitely joining, the Navy, the armed forces. And I'd even started, writing Captain Ranveer Singh and Commander Ranveer Singh. You start dreaming about your child. And when a label is given to you, then I decided a label will not change the destiny of my child. He will decide his own destiny, and we will have to support him because of his condition. But we will not allow him to be sitting in one corner. I have seen parents strapping their kids on chairs, putting them in locked rooms to avoid a social gathering, and where the child cannot just enter and create embarrassment for them. I've seen affluent families, educated families, hiding their child with a guardian in some flat given to the guardian and the child ki isko dekhna, hamari reputation na kharab ho jaye. So how people have gone to that extent where they can easily afford to look after their child. They still refuse to, accept a neuro.
I wanted to ask, there are some questions for you also, but because you spoke about all the dreams that you had for Ranveer, how did golf enter his life?
Golf entered because he had no friends. Biggest challenge for us, I remember giving my dhobi kids, my maid's ka bacha, ki beta khel lo na, pizza khilaungi, ye khilaungi, because no friends for these kids. Abhi bhi, like I told you, there are no friends. Even after Ranveer has achieved so much, yet people look up to him, but still that social inclusion is definitely amiss. So we are a family of golfers. My husband plays decent golf, and we decided, let's train him. We've exposed him to all sports. I think sports is a fantastic medium for, kids with differently abled kids. And we exposed him to riding, we exposed swimming, everything possible.
Why do you say that, that sports is good for differently abled children?
It gives them a channel to expand their energies. Yeah. It gives them discipline. It gives them eye-hand coordination. The various things which sports can give Ranveer, it's like a therapy for him.
Absolutely.
I'm sure physical therapy would be a huge part of.
It's a part of therapy, the sports, because it gives you hand-eye coordination, the body coordination improves. You start listening to instruction following improves, your stamina increases, you start channelizing your extra energy into something so that you can use, you are stable, and you can teach a lot of things after that sport to the child because the child is stable.
Right.
So it's a beautiful therapy for kids with neurodivergence.
And that's how we approached a coach in Gurgaon, Ms. Danitya Chand, and he had never taken a differently able student. So he was hesitant in the first phase. So for the first 3 years, what parents do is when they approach a coach, they come with full of expectations. Ye karna hai, wo karna hai, seekha kyun nahi? We had gone with zero expectations, and we had said, sir, a social game with his parents is all that we ask.
Right.
And it did take 3 years to train Ranveer, where the father or the mother would be the mediator between what he's explaining Ranveer, and we would translate that and explain Ranveer, and vice versa. Till the click happened. And, suddenly Ranveer started hitting the ball well. And Macau came in 2012. He started golf in 2009, and 2012, when he was just 12 years old, Macau Masters came in. And my husband took up this challenge that let me take him. Let's see what happens. And I was not very keen on that, but, Ranveer went.
Were you worried that...
I was worried that he's missing out on his OTs and his speech therapies, and why are we wasting time doing all this? We had gone with a mission here that it has to be social golf.
And Ranveer was enjoying playing?
Ranveer was enjoying.
He would look forward to classes and competitions.
Absolutely.
And
competition nahi tha, usme tha hi nahi. They don't have that spark still in them. Now he's learned with age and maturity that he's understood the meaning of winning and losing. He has understood a good game versus a bad game. So when we took him to Macau, he came in not with 1 but 2 medals for the country. So and that changed not the medals. The victory with which he came gave me as a mom super confidence that this is possible.
Right.
You know, and the country also, he suddenly became the media's golden boy, and acceptance and the hope which he gave families like mine. I think that's changed the whole scenario.
I think I remember presenting Ranveer
Yes.
an award in
Of course,
2016, the Sports
2016, you were
Illustrated Award.
responsible.
I think Rahul Dravid was also present.
Baichung Bhutia, and
Yes.
you were kind enough to be on the stage.
No, I was thrilled and so excited to meet so many wonderful sports people. And
Right.
I remember that moment. And, I wanted to ask, like you said, that it was not the medal so much, but winning the national award. What did that mean? Also for you, because it has also been your struggle, your journey, your investment, your taking a risk, your sacrifice. So what did that mean to you?
Like I said, victory for the country, victory for, I'm a very forgy wife still,
Yes,
So
yes.
I love when my kid does something for the country. And so winning a medal for the country was like, when the flag was being, when Ranveer is getting the gold medal, and it's a different goosebump feeling. And it was victory not only for Ranveer, not only as me as the mother, but it was the entire family which supported me, his coaches, his educators, his pediatrician, a team effort.
Yes.
So I give full credit to the entire team here, including Ranveer, who has put in the maximum effort, that he is where he is today.
I wanted to ask a couple of things. Also, the emotion of feeling of victory, you said that is coming in now. So typically the emotions are less in autism. The ability, do you feel things like when you win, do you feel envy? I just again remember reading a review of Barfi, and there were certain emotions that Priyanka Chopra's character was feeling. And a lot of people said, this is not an accurate portrayal because this would not happen. But are these things that maybe with your lifestyle, with things that are coming into your life, tell me about the emotions.
To start with, it's less. So, for example, a 7-month-old baby or a 10-month-old baby, they'll have that stranger anxiety.
Yes.
Stranger is different and my people are different.
Which is a natural instinct and a healthy instinct.
Then 1 year, if the parent is coming after working, the child is happy to see that parent and, they hug and they are very happy. This type of emotions are less to start with in autism because they have a very less social interaction. They are very need-based communication. Whenever their need is there, they communicate and they get their things done. But otherwise, not much of interaction with the social surrounding. But with time, maybe with intervention, or maybe a child who is having an intelligence, which is not in that 60%, it's like 40%, where intelligence is normal or even above normal. They start realizing when they start seeing people that, okay, she has friends, I don't have friends. I'm feeling bad for that. So later with therapy and these kids, they start realizing, and that's one of the biggest problem. Parents come after 6-7 years of age, where the child is doing good in academics, the child is even communicating, need-based communication is there, required communication is there. But now the problem is that he is feeling that left out, that I don't have friends. Whenever I try to communicate, because their talking is a little monotonous, or they talk what they have learned. They don't continue the conversation how we are doing. So the other kid might not be interested in talking because he is not getting that stimulus to talk.
Right.
No, it's not with every kid, but some kids do that.
Right.
And that actually causes emotional pain in the child because I don't have friends. I want to take attention of that person. I like that person. But because my words or my talking are not taking the attention, they start showing behaviors like, just hitting. Not because they want to hit, but just at least in this way, they will give me attention, or they will start pulling something or disturbing the class so that teacher can give me attention, because anyways, I'm not getting attention otherwise. So slowly they do start feeling a lot of emotions. Winning, losing, again, they start, it's quite late. It's not very early. Winning, losing starts quite late. But friends not getting included somewhere, it starts coming up by 4-5 years of age, that I'm not getting included.
Because one thing is to have your own dreams, which I think every parent does for their child. And then at some point you realize whether your child is neurodivergent or neurotypical, that this child is their own person and they're going to have their own journey. They're going to have their own friends, their own personality, and I have only so much control over that. I think it's recognizing how much is actually troubling your child and how much is troubling you, and being able to maybe, that umbilical cord to try and sort of divide that. So do you feel like in Ranveer's case that some of those disappointments come from within him as well?
Ranveer, definitely, I'm trying to make Ranveer as independent as possible and trying to make him, a little detached from his parents, because the more independent he is, the more peaceful it would be for me when in my old age or when I'm gone. Parents, what they do is the future always is a question mark for families like mine. And where we parents go wrong is we start working on academics. I'm an educationist too.
Yes.
And the focus is the ABCs and usko mental math kyun nahi aata hai. But what is the sense of teaching him Shakespeare when he cannot cross a road on his own?
Right.
This is the theory I have in life.
Right.
And I also noticed that during my interaction with special needs children in my school, one of the child in the 6th grade, he was a full-bloom autistic boy, and he lost his mother. And that was, I think, a jolt for me as to what would happen to this child who's now only going to be dependent, did not have siblings either, dependent on his father who was working, struggling for him. So that was a changing point for me as a mother, where I focused more on all-day living skills. And I wanted to cut off Ranveer from me always around as a shadow for him. So Ranveer today can fix his beds, could fix his own meals, doesn't have to rely on his staff or anyone else to look after himself. To teach him basic hygiene.
Right.
Big struggle.
Right.
So through social work stories and worksheets, the parents have to work upon their child and focus more on the all-day living skills.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice, and that the kind of forward thinking that shows.
Right. Because, how long are you going to be around him?
Ji.
He will have to be, and to teach him money, which is how to become worldly wise, biggest challenge for us.
Yes.
Earlier Ranveer would walk into a KFC to get his burger, independent, mother is very happy. But when time to tender exact change back, he would come back without any change. Oh, bhaiya nahi diya. So bhaiya nahi diya, now how do you teach him? So notes were created, currencies were created to teach him how to use a calculator. And I still find myself in situations where I have to walk up to a counter and say, sir, aapke paas 4 rupees change नहीं है, but बच्चे को तो देना पड़ेगा आपको. हम कैसे सिखाए independent बनना अगर you all don't support me? So I think I urge parents to step out in the open, ask the society to help you, and you will get that help.
Right.
So this is very, very important for us to just keep them as independent as possible.
Yes, absolutely.
So with time, I think around 20 to 30% of these kids are quite severe. They may not be even able to do a little bit of studies or even calculations. They might not be able to do anything of that sort. The only thing we need to teach them is being independent.
Right.
Because at least that has to be there so that the parents can be peaceful.
There's a sense of sometimes, again, it might be a misconception or media related, but that autism goes hand in hand with brilliance sometimes. This sort of the ability to really focus, and sometimes magic happens and it sort of unlocks things in your brain. Is it true that also you can be academically brilliant, highly verbal, and also be autistic?
Yes. So around 20 to 30% of these kids are like super intelligent, like Einstein, for example. So the skills they have are called as savant skills.
Yes.
So these are something which you will never see in a neurotypical child. So for example, a 4-year-old child is just seeing like a memory, which is a 3D memory. He's seeing something. Suppose he's seeing the studio. He goes and draws the exact same studio without even copying it. It's just from memory. This is one of the savant skills. Maths is one of the savant skills. Computational or computers, it's one of the savant skills, like mathematics basically. So they do have these skills, arts, music. These skills are there when in autism, and that's why they just excel in what they do. So parents, I think, needs to understand what are these skills which my child can do better, or what he has something which other kids don't have.
I think every parent, neurotypical or neurodivergent, instead of thinking about what does my child not have, if we could only focus on what makes our child different and special, and that is the purpose of education.
Absolutely.
Education actually is about bringing out the best in your child. And a lot of our educational systems do not reflect that.
Absolutely.
I have some questions about education a little bit later, but some of the things we didn't touch upon that I wanted to come back a little bit. One, my friend Niranjana always has a question for a podcast, and her question was connected to screens. And again, if you could clarify for people, they say a lot of autism might even be caused by, screen dominance, screen dependency. Is that true? And is there any connection at all between too much screen time and something like autism?
Cause is not definitely the screen, but definitely a milder form of autism can convert into a moderate or a severe by just screens, because they're anyways less social. They don't like social interaction. If suppose they are getting their way out of entertainment by looking at something which is a one-way communication, there's no communication happening from my end, they kind of get addicted. The screen will be seen by a neurotypical child as well as a neurodivergence child or autistic child. But the neurotypical child, after a particular time, he'll be like, Mama, please come and play with me now. Come see what I have done. Chalo, we'll play this, we'll do that. But a child with autism, because they don't have that social skills, they'll just get glued to it. The more you are glued to it, the communication, you are anyways not listening to what people are saying.
Right.
So the communication delays further.
Right.
Your social interaction delays further. So maybe it can increase the severity, but it doesn't cause autism.
Yeah. Right. And it might delay...
It can trigger more behavior issues.
And it also might delay the time whereby you will be able to pick up on it. Because,
you're
you
not
won't
even
notice.
observing.
You won't observe it. Some of the things, again, you said medicine has come a long way, whether it comes to certain conditions, and you're becoming very precise. Even when it comes to things like cancer, they're very optimistic. Even when it's endometriosis, we had Dr. Vertley talking about a future where with a blood test you can tell. So you said that you are hopeful. What do you see happening when it comes to things like AI or technology in terms of helping us with diagnosis firstly, and then also with, I mean, as you said, there's no cure, but sort of managing?
So I am hopeful, and half of the hope has been achieved. So for example, as I said, there is no objective diagnosis, and even pediatricians to tell a child that the child is having a problem to the parent, it takes like something like, oh, I will tell the parent that the child is having a problem. The parent might not come to me for the next vaccination.
Yes.
They might get offended.
Yes.
So they also need something like a blood test, something like an MRI, something which can tell ki bhai hai.
It's not your opinion.
It's not my opinion. So this problem, I think everyone in the world is facing, and that's how the researchers have been working for decades on some tool that can diagnose autism objectively.
Right.
So there is Dr. Karen Pierce. She has been working in University of California Center of Excellence Autism on some technology called eye tracking. So basically, it just tracks where you are seeing. In a simple language, the technology just tracks where are you seeing. She has made a set of 6 videos which has like social and non-social components. Kids with autism will focus towards non-social, like sound of traffic or lights seen or something like that. And social component where the girl is speaking, girl and mama are playing. This is the social component. The child will just keep seeing. Wherever he's seeing, that video will start playing. So after some time, I'll get to see that, okay, when I see this part, I get to hear what I like. So the child will start seeing where his preferences.
Right.
Based on that, where the child is seeing, it gives you a score that is like a social score.
Right.
Based on that, you can actually tell that the child is having red flags of autism or not.
Right.
The interesting part is it's 97% specific. That means if 100 kids have been positive, 97 definitely will be having autism.
So it's that accurate.
It's that accurate. And second interesting thing is it can diagnose as early as 12 months of age.
I was going to say, what is the right age to be doing a
so
screening
12
like
months.
this?
So why we were looking for such technology is when we give therapy, we have a data of around 15,000 kids taking therapy. One interesting part came out was if the child enters the therapy between 2 to 3.5 years of age, the progress is very steep. They grow really well, and we are after 2.5 years of therapy, they are able to get inculcated in a regular neurotypical world. So if that is possible with early intervention, there has to be a tool to diagnose early.
Right.
Because by the time they start taking therapy, it's already 3.5, 4, because the doctor tells them after 2.5, no, ab to kafi bolna chahiye, kuch hi nahi bol raha hai. Now I think you should go. By the time they accept it, they go to the therapy center, it's already 3.5. That's like you've already delayed it. If there is an early screening, we can diagnose. And if there is a diagnosis, definitely therapy can work better. Similarly, presently, a lot of kids are having ADHD or learning disabilities as well. So again, researchers from Europe have been working using the same technology. May not be the video, but something where the child is shifting his gaze. So
Right.
an ADHD child will not be able to fix his gaze to one particular thing. He'll keep switching here and there. Or in a reading ability, the child might go back, then confront, go back and confront.
Right.
So this same technology is being used to diagnose objectively ADHD as well as
Learning disabilities.
disability, I would say, reading problems.
Right.
So if we can do that with technology, it gives you an objective tool.
Yes.
You can start intervention. Similarly, a lot of work is going on the biomarkers as well. So for example, presently, these kids are getting a lot of vitamins. Every doctor gives them, kuch to medicine kaam kare, so they give vitamins, they give DHA, the fish oils or maybe omegas, then they may give gut microbiome, maybe microbiome is troubling. It's the reason for autism. That's why they change the microbiome. But this adds to the cost of therapy. It's like 5,000, 7,000 rupees per month, which is added along with the therapy cost. Which if we can, and we don't even know if it's really working for the child or not, it's just a vitamin that we are giving. So a lot of biomarkers, if we can tell that, this test, the child came, we did a screening with the eye tracking, which is known as Gets It Early. So we got to know autism. He goes to the developmental pediatrician. He checks for the biomarkers in blood, in stool, and so on. He finds out these are the problems. This problem, we give this medicine and start with therapy. This becomes a precision medicine. I think we are not very far, maybe a couple of years or 2 or maybe more, just to reach that precision in autism. This Gets It Early, which I mentioned as a screening tool, which screens for autism as early as 12 months of age with a specificity of 97% and sensitivity of around 75%. We have got associated with the technology as Butterfly Learnings getting associated with Gets It Early.
I see.
It's presently only for autism, but in another 2 months, we are putting even ADHD as well as the reading test along with the same technology. So basically, it will be a package given together for early diagnosis of autism, ADHD and reading problems.
Nice. And the question is also, how involved is the government in this? Is there sort of some kind of, from the health ministry, a kind of app, or, because are parents volunteering to do this, or is this something that is everybody will have to sit to be able to then find out? Because if you're waiting for parents to come forward, then you might have a lot of people for various reasons not coming forward. So is it something like Butterfly that does this, the pediatrician does this, school does it, or it's mandatory?
There have been applications that have come up from the government, like a Precious app.
Yes.
But the screening does at 4 years of age. So it's already a little late. These things have to be diagnosed a little more early. But from the government side, not really, a screening is not there, but definitely in the last 2-3 years, there's a lot of focus on developmental problems by government in every state. They are looking, because the problem, it's like, if you don't diagnose early, you don't treat, it's a huge financial, emotional and social burden in future.
Right.
Because there'll be so many people who will not be independent. They won't be able to take care of themselves. We require people to take care of them.
Right.
And that I think the government is realizing very well now. They have come into early screenings. They are looking for things, technology that they can use in mass screening of these kids. Secondly, they are even looking for inclusion. They have become quite strict now कि schools cannot reject admissions. Although it's from the government level, it might not have percolated down well. But all these reforms are coming from government. They're putting a lot of focus on early intervention. There's every government hospital has a separate wing for early intervention. So I think they are realizing the problem as we are from developing to a developed country. We are going towards there. Our infections, anemia, all those problems are reducing, and we are going towards more chronic issues like diabetes, psychiatric problems, developmental problems. So I think they are realizing that, definitely working on it.
Before we move to, because you mentioned education and schools, and I do want to touch on that also because you've devoted so many years to doing that. Again, flagging for a lot of people, a lot of parents, for example, who might be faced with resistance to taking their children forward for diagnosis. A lot of things that come forward are people saying that, relatives saying that, well, he may speak later, this happens, not everyone hits the milestones at the same time, we should anyway not compare children, his father spoke late, these things happen. So did you experience that?
Of course. The totkas and all those excuses, and, my mother-in-law explaining me that maybe, my son spoke late, so Ranveer will speak late.
Right.
But, and these, running around from listening to every relative giving you some gyan on how to raise a child. And so we've gone through that entire grind. And the only way forward is intervention, like I said, Soha.
Yeah.
Do not just keep a deaf ear of what your relatives have to give you, and keep moving on with your, your own instinct, your parental instinct on how to raise your boy.
Right. I did ask you, of course, but I wanted to underline maybe, like a lot of, because it's called All About Her, a lot of the burden, I feel, of a lot of things comes on women in general in life. And even when it comes to something like having a child with neurodivergence, did you feel, I know you got a lot of support from your husband, but did you feel like a lot of that burden was on you? And then I wanted to ask you also, Dr. Kothari, do you feel like the burden often falls on the mother? Perhaps more?
It does, at least.
Of course. The mother always feels that she is solely responsible for, nurturing this child. And I went through a lot of, my ups and downs, and my moments were very low at times when I would, hide myself in a corner and, get so frustrated as to why are things not falling in place? Why is this behavior not? There are times when I have prayed to God that, have an accident where both me and Ranveer go off together, that kaam hi khatam, baat hi khatam. But then when I started, spiritually reading a couple of books, that he has his own karmic life and I have my own karmic cycle. So I, confuse, so when I started accepting Ranveer the way he is, and I started enjoying his abilities, I started enjoying autism. Autism is a beautiful, huge umbrella, like Sonam explained, but they have lot of purity. They have lot of innocence.
Tell me some of the joys of autism.
Ranveer can definitely, the emotions, like we talked about, these kids don't have emotions, it's a myth. Soha, I've seen Ranveer understand even a twinkle in my eye, and he would know whether I am really happy or am I. When he wins medals, the only person he looks around in the crowd is his mother's smile, or when he's having a bad shot, he looks at my face for an expression or for, a reaction that, have I, disappointed you?
Yeah.
So there is this child who treats you like his world, and vice versa, So it's your responsibility, the mother's responsibility, to make sure that this kid is on the right path, come what may.
Yes.
And I think the strength which we mothers have is immense, which can break all the barriers. Like I said, autism will not define my child's life.
Yeah. You've also led the integrated learning program at Scottish High for over 20 years now?
Yes, 22 years.
Personally, professionally, was there ever a moment for you sort of made you decide that you want to devote your life's work to this? You did say that, both you and your husband had to give up, and you knew that this was going to take so much of you, also because it's not structured in any way. You have to, if you want to give your child the best shot, like all of us do, then it required that level of sacrifice.
Of course.
So, of course, I want to ask you today also whether, because a lot of parents may not be able to make that level of sacrifice for reasons beyond their control.
Right.
As you said, there are some parents who can afford to who still do not, but there's some parents who may not be able to afford
Right.
to. So for you, what was that moment when you decided that this is going to be my life's work?
Like I told you, when my SEN student, one of my special needs students, lost his mother, and I realized the helplessness in that boy's eye, and that was a feeling which I can never get over with. And I realized that this is maybe the purpose of life, for me, and this is the way I should be moving ahead. And today I have dealt with hundreds of special needs children, and I counsel free counseling to various parents who need help. And I encourage parents to come and ask me questions. I remember my journey when I started afresh as a new mother. I would find successful autism and successful autistic adults and try and take an appointment with the mother to see how would Ranveer be when he's 25.
And where would you find them?
Word to mouth, in the circle, you find in the community, somebody says, oh, this child is going to a college also, self-driving, he's autistic. He's operating on a phone with his mother. And we would say, is that possible?
Right.
And we would go ask that mother, please give me 10 minutes of your time. And some would even charge us to meet us, but that's how life is.
Right.
And we would go see a hope in that family. And then, so all the lessons which I have learned in life as a mother, I try and help people. And I'm very open to counseling. I'm very open to rural mothers calling me. And I spend hours on the phone trying to explain them. But ye bhi kaam karo na, wo bhi kaam karo. But they want quick solutions. Jaldi se batao aapne kiya kya. Wo kiya to nahi na. It's a long struggle. And it still is a lifelong struggle, Soha.
I think even with your work through RCI,
yes,
and with Special Olympics Bharat,
yes,
you've worked closely, I think, with families navigating disability, navigating neurodivergence. There was a reference to the Universal Disability ID card, and I think you're carrying one with you as well. You spoke about how things are sort of fragmented and scattered when it comes to access, when it comes to just life for someone with neurodivergence. So tell us about the card and how that might help streamline things.
So this is the unique disability ID card, and it's a government initiative again. And every family with a disabled child definitely needs to register the child on the portal of the government, the UDID portal, where the government finally you have to submit all your documents, all your medical certificates to prove that Ranveer is disabled, and then they call you in a government hospital to assess your child, and based on their conviction as a doctor, they give you a percentage of disability where your child falls into. And they issue you this card. Now, this UDID card is an access to families like me who do not have to go to various organizations where I need to, produce certificates to prove that my child is disabled. I have this authorizing me that, yes, I have a son who is autistic. This card works, it has its good points also, which families again fear that, hum UDID कार्ड ले लिया तो मतलब पक्का अब तो गवर्नमेंट ने भी लेबल लगा दिया कि हमारा बच्चा डिसेबल है. But let's take advantage of facilities like this. It's a good initiative. I use it more for, you have your bus discounts, your rail discounts, courtesy this card. Airports. So airports are not, Indian airports especially, are not, disability friendly.
Not at all.
And we struggle, when there are, and especially with international travel, long immigration queues, even in destinations abroad, I carry this card.
Right.
And I have used this card successfully to my son's advantage, where I walk up to the custom officer or whoever is standing security person and I explain them, sir, my son has been given this UDID by India. Could I please skip this queue?
Right.
Because he's having a tough time managing himself in this long queue.
Right.
There are times when it has worked in my favor, but again, sensitivity and awareness in the crowd is where we lack. And I think podcasts like this are helping us spread this awareness.
I would like to add
Please.
on this. So UDID government actually has become sensitized with this problem. They actually have an insurance scheme called Niramaya scheme, which gives covers around 1 to 1.2 lakhs per year for therapies, just based on this card. You have to have this card, you get registered, you just have to give the bills to there are centers where it is, they have kept some centers where you just have to give that and the money will start. It might not be the complete therapy money, but at least part of it, if you're getting, it's a long-term process. It's a big help for the parents. Secondly, government has also, although we are not structured in education for maybe the neurodivergence kids, but there is a structure. So, for example, the way a normal curriculum goes, like junior KG, kindergarten, senior KG, first to K-12 till 12th standard, and then you go for college and professional career. Similarly, there's a parallel curriculum that goes on, which is again by government. NIPED has made something like Disha curriculum, which is like a kindergarten curriculum, which is nursery L1, L2, L3. Yes. If you cross L3, you don't have to go to the mainstream. You can go into National Institute of Open Schooling. So there's an open schooling curriculum, NIOS, where you do A, B, C, 10th, 12th. If you are able to clear 12th, you are open to choose any career. You can go to any college. It is not taken as 12th of regular curriculum or 12th of NIOS curriculum. They can give any entrance where they want to, and they can go ahead. I think this awareness is not at all there. People just look for going to a regular school. Uska first standard hona chahiye, fifth standard hona chahiye, 10th kaise karega, 12th kaise karega. There is a parallel way where he can still reach the same level.
Right.
It's just that it is a bit easier for the child to cope up with that curriculum and can go ahead.
I want to ask whether this parallel system, just because you mentioned label, and I think that there are so many wonderful advantages of having that card. The stigma of being labeled is, again, in so many categories of life. People fight, but I think that there has to be an understanding of its requirement,
right,
of the help,
right,
and that maybe we're not at that stage in life where we can live label free, and let's recognize the label and what it's there for. So one thing is, with the card, do you find any kind of resistance amongst people of having a card and then the thappa of disability? Or is there an appreciation of a rights-based sort of approach and the rights that you can get by being disabled? And the second thing was about the education system. Again, with Pooja, we were discussing getting admission for Nora. It was difficult. There were schools that wanted to. They're inclusive by philosophy, right, but they're not prepared because they don't have the staff. They've not trained their teachers, etc. Again, for the child, and I know every child is different, is it that different children might do better in a quote-unquote normal school, and some children might benefit from a parallel, and so therefore it's great that both options exist? Or do you feel like one is better than the other?
Okay, to answer the first question, parents are not comfortable to get this card at an early age. So 4, 5, 6, 7, they still have a hope that no, he'll be okay, we'll be fine. He'll be okay, he'll be fine. But the moment the age starts increasing, like 10 years, 12 years, they start looking for that because the behaviours of the child increases. The child has become very strong now. The mother is not able to handle the child's meltdowns if it happens on a platform.
Is a protective shield.
Yes.
In the society.
Yes.
So if it happens on a platform, it happens in a train, they just want to get down of the moving train.
And how vulnerable must you feel if that happens?
Absolutely. So then the acceptance starts increasing and they really want this card to be made. Second, education thing. If you want to go through the parallel way, you have to have this card. Without that, it doesn't work. Second, very important thing for the second question, I think both education systems should be existent because all neurodivergence kids are not low on IQ. IQ is low, as I said, on 60% of the kids with autism and in few of the other neurodivergence. But there are many kids who are absolutely normal or maybe above normal in their intelligence. These kids have to be on the mainstream, maybe with a little bit support for their social and language milestone delays.
Right.
With therapies, resource room and so on. But the kids who are in the IQ level of 85 is usually the average IQ. If they are between 75 or maybe 70 to 75 or 70 to 80, these kids can survive in both schools with a little bit of more support. But the IQ, if less than 75, they cannot just cope up with the curriculum. It is quite difficult for them.
Right.
These kids
would benefit from
definitely benefit from a side curriculum. Everyone cannot give a 12th standard, even in NIOS. In NIOS, it's not something which is nothing. I mean, it still has studies to do. There are few kids whose IQ is very low, like they are 40, below 30. Those kids have a separate functional curriculum where the teaching is just to make them independent, functional life skills like waiting, sharing, or doing, since morning till evening, they should be independent, outside as well as inside. So those are the functional skills they should go for.
Mrs. Bakhtawar, I wanted to ask you if you could design the whole system from scratch, for example, and especially with a focus on education, because again, this is something that you felt the need because there was nothing that existed for Ranveer. You felt the need to create something.
Right.
And you have, and now it is flourishing. You know, you said your school started with
125.
And now it's 3,000 plus. Which and that's over how many years?
21 years.
Over 21 years. So including education, I wanted to ask you, what are the things that you might feel are still missing today? And like, I'm imagining sort of a single link pipeline, if one could create that, like this card, you know, could open up that pipeline to you. But from subsidized therapy to, you know, the ID system, inclusive schooling, what are the things that you would like to see?
Social inclusion, Soha.
And
biggest challenge. I wish every family is little more sensitive towards family like ours and take upon the responsibility of sensitizing their children, you know, they're growing up children, that, you know, you need to be a little kind to these autistic kids. You need to involve them in your day-to-day activities. They're nice people. They're not somebody to be, you know, kept on the, you know, shunted away. And, you know, invite them, have programs where you have birthday parties. Make sure those kids are also a part of your birthday party. Include the parents also. So this social inclusion is so much important for families like ours. The pipeline you're talking about, the dream pipeline for us as a family, and what happens after schooling.
Yes.
The parents are aging.
That's the real world for all of us.
The real world. What happens after schooling? There are no jobs. There are no employment facilities for these kids. They're just given into a candle making or a bread making vocation. That's not the way of life, you know, which one wants to choose. So families like us have to again start reinventing what could be a secured future for him. Could it be a sport where he's engaged, but sport also has its age limits, you know, beyond which you have to finally retire. So we just left in the dark. We are making our own dreamline and our own pipeline, but it is working, I would say. I will never give up hope. But social inclusion is the call of the hour.
And how has that experience been for you in schools, for example, where in a class you would have, what is the ratio?
So I have worked this very beautifully in our school where we have 25 kids in a class, where we go and sensitize these kids. We celebrate Autism Day. 2nd April is the World Autism Day, where we go and celebrate Autism Day, where I exhibit all these children on the stage with their abilities. We don't talk about the word called disability. So where you talked about the 7 skills, each of these kids have super 7 skills. Like they can recollect 15th August 2010 is which day, and Ranveer just has to do this and say Monday. By the time you're flipping your calendar, he's already given you the answer. So why not, you know, look upon these kids and respect them for their abilities. In a school where you have these 4 clans or these 4 houses, each house is given the responsibility that if you have an autistic boy participating in the athletic meet of your school, 10 points given to the clan. So every clan wants that little kid to be participating in the sports. Think of ideas, think of inclusive ideas to have these kids blend in the society. I think they have all the right to have social inclusion.
I think many schools have started doing that. So my daughter goes to a school. Almost every class, every division has at least 1 or 2 kids who are either learning with a shadow or we can see that there's something different. Every annual day which we attend, every child is on the stage. It is not that these children are not to be taken because they are not able to do, they are not able to do. And every child who is having a problem, there are 2 kids holding the hands every time on the stage for every function, so that स्टेज से उतरना है, एक जन उसको लेके उतर रहा है कि भाई ये मेरा responsibility है. So, for example, just yesterday, my daughter, so the shadow who is there with one of the kids, she's continuously complaining, you talk to the father because the shadow hits the baby. She sometimes does this. She sometimes holds him tight and puts him down. I don't like it. You should talk to the father. Why are you not doing that? I'm like, I'll do that. I'll do that. So
I think you must talk to the father.
I must talk to the father. So, and she's like, number leke aao, main la ke deti hu, group mein number hoga. You talk to him karke, they change the shadow. She's not doing good with him.
Right.
So like, what are you doing for him? Like, I try to say hi. I try to meet him, but he doesn't respond to me. We're like, it's okay. Daily you do that. One day he will respond to your hi.
Yes.
Yeah, but
and that's, I mean, if your classroom is supposed to be a reflection of future society, then it must have that. And you're teaching those values to your children of kindness. And these are values that...
Empathy, not sympathy.
Absolutely. And just being there for each other. I mean, these are basic, I think, tenets of human nature that we want to see in all our children. As we come towards the end of this, just some closing questions. Dr. Kothari, I thought I would ask you, perhaps if there's, and hopefully there are many parents watching this, who have noticed something different about their child, but is perhaps afraid to take that first step. What would you like to say to them?
The first and the advice would be, when a mother is seeing some difference in the child, the first thing is to get it checked. Because you are the first person to understand your child, and a mother's intuition usually doesn't go wrong. So if you are feeling something wrong, the best thing is go to a pediatrician. Usually pediatrician is your first trusted doctor, because from the childhood you have been there. Tell these problems. He will guide you to get him screened or direct you to a proper developmental pediatrician or a pediatric neurologist, and get him screened. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. If it is negative, well and good, your fear is gone. If it is positive, you have a good time to start working on him and make him absolutely okay and independent. So I think the fears should be checked. Don't worry about anything else.
And Mrs. Bakhtawar, of course, your own son, I think, is just a living answer to this question. When a parent hears that word, autism, they fear what is in store for their children's future, which is a natural fear. When you look at the future, what does the future of neurodivergent children look like for you?
As of now, scary. As of now, scary and fearful for families like mine as to what would happen after we go. Do we have in our country enough communities who will be looking after these children? No. Enough infrastructure? No. The families are left to make their own choices, make their own little future schemes for your, child, to protect your child. So this is not a good feeling to have, that where you can, but my other daughter and my other son, I'm not bothered. I know they will fend for themselves. I know they will look after their life paths. But for Ranveer, I have to make his life path, and I have to always run 100 times ahead of him to think what's going to happen at that milestone when he comes at the age of 30, at the age of 40, who's that loneliness, who's going to look after all that. So my upbringing has changed. I'm a selfish mom where raising the other two kids are concerned, self-centered, Ranveer as the focus. So the entire parenting style changes, and it's nothing. And often what happens is autistic kids, and the parents are always called as bad parenting parents. उन्हें संभाला नहीं ठीक से, इसको पूरे behavior issues है. Nobody understands the challenges the family is going through. So it's not bad parenting, I insist. It is just the child's condition which we are managing. And we're managing and doing a pretty good job about it. So it's like a lifelong struggle, but I know with Ranveer and the way I'm raising him, he is going to lead an independent life, and he is already an inspirational icon for many autistic families.
Absolutely. Just one extra question touching on your other children, because for families that have siblings who might be neurotypical, and you said, of course, they understand now and they're grown up, the focus, but growing up, was there ever a sense of, you're spending too much time with Ranveer, or what about me, or teenage daughters?
A sense of neglect. A sense of neglect. Peer pressure for these kids. वो तुम्हारे घर नहीं आना है, तुम्हारा भाई ना बहुत परेशान करता है. So they have gone through those taunts and the societal pressures on them. But again, like I said, Soha, it is your upbringing and how you blend them into understanding that this is another neurodivergent kid in our house who is our responsibility, God's gift. I always believe Ranveer is a super pure God's gift in our life, and we have to enjoy all his, expressions, his disappointments, his behaviors, and the glories. All of us today, are called as proud parents or proud siblings of Ranveer.
And he has more competitions coming up this year, so we wish him all the very best.
And we derive our strength from him, the way he's moving ahead.
Absolutely. No. Just a closing question again from you, Mrs. Bakhtawar. If there's one thing you could just, I know you've touched on it, one thing that you would change about how India, I think, understands and supports our neurodivergent children, over the next 10 years, perhaps? What would that be?
Stop staring at families with neurodivergent kids. They're not some extinct species or some different kind of species, because we always get those stares, you know, and that makes it more difficult to handle a tricky situation like a behavior, trigger point which Ranveer has, or a meltdown which Ranveer has. So don't stare at us. Least you could do is be a little more accommodative, be a little more sensitive towards families like ours. Learn to have some patience with us, because we are also being very patient with our child who's struggling to come out of his condition. So I think these are small values which every family, every parent should teach his or her growing child, that, there is nothing called neurodivergent or neurotypical. We are all beautiful kids of God, and we are meant to live equally in this world.
Yeah. Dr. Kothari, I wanted to ask you, if you could, hypothetically redesign the whole system from scratch in India, then what do you think we're missing? Like, I'm thinking of this single link pipeline, perhaps, that, with the benefit of this ID card, you can actually untap a lot of things.
So for me, I think it should start from the birth. First is, insurance should start getting accepted for the kids for getting therapy. Presently, therapy doesn't get covered under insurance, majority of the insurance services. If you can just say that from birth, anyways, you are taking insurance for babies, take insurance. It might happen, it might not happen, but at least it's covered. That's the first thing. Early diagnosis as early as 12 months for autism and maybe around 3 years for ADHD. After diagnosis, it should have biomarkers as a diagnosis, basically converting the complete neurodevelopmental disorder, especially autism, because it's one of the most common, into precision medicine. It should be treated like any other disorder. बच्चे को typhoid हुआ है, हम treat कर रहे हैं, वैसे बच्चे को autism हुआ है, मैं treat कर रही हूँ.
Right.
Presently, there's so much of stigma that it's developmental problem, it's pagal, it's this, it's that. It's not. It's like any other precision medicine or any other problem. There is a screening test. You consider that this is the problem and you got the problem. You do blood test, you do stool test. You get to know what are the biomarkers. You treat the biomarkers with nutraceuticals or the drugs, whatever are required. You give therapy. After these many therapies or this much of therapy, as per data, at least 80% of the kids can get independent.
Right.
It's just 15 to 18% who are very severe, who take a lot of time. But 80% started interventions early, diagnosed early. Given the right intervention, they can get independent. So it should be like any other medicine. And plus, going further, they should have the right to education in any school. Schools should be more inclusive. I understand with 25 kids, 30 kids in a class, having a child with a lot of behaviors, crying or shouting or biting someone else, it's difficult for the teachers. We need to train teachers for this problem specifically.
Exactly.
And they should be able to handle those teachers rather than having them kept in a separate class or having them kept only based on a shadow. Why not? I can take the responsibility of that. So more of inclusion, awareness towards a parallel line, though people who cannot do this curriculum, and then having a vocational and residential facilities with time, so that vocation, they become independent. And with time, when parents are not able to take care of these kids, there has to be residential facilities where they can be taken care by someone else.
Right. And I think especially with the numbers being 1 in 10, this is the very least that we expect, from our society.
Yes.
Right. So back in time when Ranveer was diagnosed in 2002, like I explained you, Soha, I had to run around for different places geographically all across, scattered in Delhi. But I wish I had a center, holistic center like Butterfly Learnings, which has recently opened its branch in Gurgaon, where everything is covered under one roof. And they have chosen Ranveer to be the brand ambassador, and which is such a sense of pride for us. And it's a beautiful center which has special educators, very well skilled, trained special educators. They work on timelines. They are very transparent in their system, where they allow parents to actually peep into the therapies and learn something out of those therapies. So I think that's the way forward. And the only way forward is to have a holistic center like Butterfly Learnings.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you so much to the both of you for just taking the time out. I know you've come
you.
all the way from Gurgaon. You've come all the way from Thane. Perhaps took you longer.
Took
you longer to come from Thane.
Yeah.
But really, I find these conversations are hugely educational for me, and they just give me perspective. Every time I have a conversation, especially I think with a mother, and she talks about her experience with any, whoever your child is, the kind of sacrifices you make, the way you think about your child, and then that child's own journey, the wonderful work that you're doing as well. Dr. Kothari, I just think that it's phenomenal. Doctors, mothers are all fantastic people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Soha, for having us.
Thank you so much. I think for me, the biggest takeaway of today's conversation was that every single child is unique and different and develops in their own ways. And different doesn't mean less. And the earlier that we understand those differences, it is important, because it's the earlier that means that we can offer support, not just to the children, but also to the families, I think, who are walking this journey with them. We've come a long way. I've understood that, but I also understand that we have a long way to go. If there's one takeaway from this episode, for you at home, it would be, please trust your instincts. As a parent, if you have a concern, do not ignore it, and do not let fear stop you from asking questions, and do not let guilt stop you from seeking help. Early support really has the power to change a life's trajectory, as you've seen. A huge thank you to Dr. Kothari, to Mrs. Bakhtawar for just sharing their expertise, and also, most importantly, their vision for a more inclusive, more empathetic India. If this conversation helped you, or if you know a parent who could benefit from it, please do share this episode with them. Sometimes one conversation at the right time can really change the course of a child's life. And thank you for watching All About Her.